We know that Stuart Baxter has this morning called on his second Bafana spell. This after a disappointing run at the 2019 Afcon Cup. He's just announced the breaking news, resigning as head coach of the national soccer team, and really just delivering a press conference a short while ago. We will be crossing to our reporter Pilar Sandes, who was at the press conference. Pilar, a very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us. Really mixed emotions there coming out of Stuart Baxter as he delivered the news to the nation, saying that he's bowing out as head coach of Bafana. What does this mean for SAFA going forward? Of course, we'll continue to get an update from our reporter, Pilar Sande, who attended this press conference. And as you can see, as you've noted, breaking news, Stuart Baxter has resigned as coach of the national soccer team of Bafana. And to get more information and a bit more clarity, we cross to our reporter, Pilar Sande, who was at that press conference at the Killarney Country Club, which took place a short while ago. Pilar, good morning. Thanks for joining us. What does this mean for SAFA going forward? I mean, Stuart Baxter really emphasizing the word respect, mentioning it several times during his presser. What did you make of that?
Yeah, Paul, look, it's quite a big news in terms of the South African football is concerned. You know, Stuart mentioned a number of contributing factors that led to his resignation today as the head coach of Bafana. He said that you know, the combinations of pressures from different fraternities, namely the media, who he slammed quite vociferously for reporting facts that weren't true, and that he had enough of you know, dealing with those kind of reports where he says that, you know, it would have costed SAFA over 70 million or 17 million rand to sack him, which he says was never true, and that he's not even getting a cent in terms of compensation for his resignation from SAFA. So those are some of the issues that Stuart Baxter spoke about in terms of his reasoning for resigning as the head coach of Bafana.
He also, I mean, as you speak about money, he mentioned money. One reporter posed a question asking how much his salary was, and there was also another second component of money, saying that he got one very lucrative offer financially, but saying that money is not his God.
Yeah, definitely, Paul. That's what he said. You know, he said that you know, when the media colleague asked him about the compensation from SAFA or how much his salary was from SAFA, he said that he didn't want to disclose those kind of details. But he also said that he has rejected numerous offers from South Africa and outside of the country in terms of his future and what he wants to do next. So, you know, in terms of his future, he says that he doesn't have anything lined up as yet in terms of going into another coaching role. So for Baxter, it hasn't been such a sort of a pleasant last few weeks of his tenure as South African national coach, but hopefully, as he said, he will get on track again and find something else to do.
We know that Baxter has been heavily criticized by the public for his favoritism and selections with players that he's worked with in his former clubs that he's been employed under. And now just looking at the future and looking forward, who are the front runners who could very well replace him? Yeah,
Mpho, he has come under quite of criticism in terms of his squad selection, but some of the reasons that he did say is that he has been able to build a squad as part of a 4-step plan that he did submit to SAFA after the disappointment of not qualifying for the Russia World Cup, which was a couple of years ago. That he said that he submitted a 4-step plan in trying to better and improve South African football, and one of them was to create squad depth and introduce younger players to the national side. And he says that he thinks that he has definitely fulfilled that mandate that he set himself and he set for South African football as a whole. In terms of the front runners, the front runners to replace Baxter, the acting CEO of SAFA, Mr. Russell Paul, did confirm earlier on in this press conference that there will be a technical committee meeting tomorrow to discuss the way forward in terms of who they are likely to replace Baxter with. He did say that they are targeting to announce Baxter's successor by the end of this month, which is August. And of course, Mpho, there are various friendlies that have been lined up for Bafana and qualification rounds of the next Afcon tournament start in November this year. So the time frames are quite tough and tight for SAFA, and which they hope they will get a new successor by the end of August of this month.
And before we let you go, Pilar, we heard Baxter speaking about the many challenges that he faced, saying that Bafana has the resources, but the team is simply not there technically, socially, mentally. Also just pointing to the emotional toll that this job has taken on him, speaking about a biopsy for cancer, a screening, and having to leave that behind to go to Libya with the Bafana. When it comes to the new person who will step into the shoes of Baxter, what are some of the expectations and what are the sore points that will need the coach to focus on?
Yeah, definitely. Whoever steps into Baxter's shoes next will definitely have quite a lot on his plate already. You know, one of them is to try and galvanize a squad that will be able to go further than just a quarterfinal at the Africa Cup of Nations in the next edition of the Africa Cup of Nations. What is also going to be very difficult for them is that elusive qualification for the World Cup. We know that the next World Cup in Qatar, which is 2022, that will be the sole mandate for whoever who does succeed Baxter in terms of their outright mandate is to qualify for Qatar 2022, which is just around the corner. And of course, the South African Football Association had already set out a Vision 2022, which Russell Paul said that Stuart Baxter had contributed massively towards in trying to shape out a successful plan for South African football going into 2022, where they will try and qualify for the World Cup. So there will be a range of issues that the next Bafana coach will have to face, and some of them, and probably the biggest of them, is to qualify for Qatar 2022, which is the ultimate goal and which was Baxter's ultimate mandate, because his contract would have ended at the end of the Qatar 2022 World Cup. So the most important of all the mandates and all the inheritance that the next Bafana coach will face is to qualify for Qatar 2022.